Hi, everyone. Welcome to our first virtual spotlight series, The Power of Perseverance. I'm Carrie Miller, here with Michael Nogan, and we are the founders and general partners of Overton Venture Capital. We are excited to be speaking with two amazing founders of companies we've invested in, Rachel and Matt, who will share their journeys as founders and the insights they've gained running a business while navigating a global pandemic. Thank you to our audience who submitted questions in advance, and we will try to get to as many of them as we can. Before we begin, a few words about Overton Venture Capital. Overton is an early-stage venture capital firm, particularly focused on the changing consumer landscape and investing in ambitious, consumer-focused entrepreneurs who are building exceptional next-generation brands and services. We partner with experienced teams to grow differentiated, defensible businesses with the potential to scale and disrupt legacy industries. We bring significant talent and operational capabilities through a hands-on approach and leveraging our deep bench of seasoned operating partners. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Michael Nogan, my co-founder. Michael?
Thanks, Carrie. Matt, Rachel, welcome. We're excited to have you join us today. We obviously know you well as investors and partners, but for the audience who may not be familiar with Wethos or Stantt, please take a minute to introduce yourself, tell us about your company and the big problem you're solving. We'll start with Rachel.
Sure, yeah. Hey, all. Thanks so much for having me, and thanks for coming. I'm Rachel. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Wethos. Wethos is a platform that enables freelancers to form teams together, or rather virtual studios, as we call them, where they're able to price complex projects, form project-based teams, and automatically split payments among those teammates. I used to work in the agency world as an art director, and I left in 2016 to try to reinvent that model from the ground up. So that's what we're doing.
Gotcha. And what was that one pivotal moment when you came up with the idea and really saw the opportunity to launch Wethos?
Yeah, sure. So, well, my light bulb moment wasn't really an idea. It was more of a problem, which was coming from our customers, honestly. And that was because we work with a lot of high-earning independent freelancers in creative and marketing, and many times they're getting so much inbound request that they lack the bandwidth to actually meet the demands of those clients. So what a lot of them do is they form teams manually together by basically enlisting other freelancers in their network. And today they do a lot of this through spreadsheets, pretty much, and other disparate tools. And so in order for us to enable people to earn more money, basically, and scale their businesses up and down as needed, we wanted to provide a solution to them that was sort of full stack and would create kind of like a e-commerce-like revolution, honestly, but with service-based businesses that require multiple people to execute.
Gotcha, thanks. So Matt, throw it to you. Can you take 60 seconds, introduce yourself, tell us about Stantt and the big problem you're solving?
Absolutely. So my name is Matt Hornbuckle, co-founder and co-CEO of Stantt. We are a men's apparel brand who's taken a very unique approach to the industry. And instead of traditional sizing, we offer pants and shirts actually in over 99 unique sizes. We're able to make and deliver garments in only 7 to 10 days. And right now we're partnering with many of the best stores in the country, including Nordstrom, Rothmans, Mitchells, Richards, et cetera. And the problem we're solving is for the customer, making it really simple to get clothes that fit really well, that are personalized to him and are made and delivered in a very quick manner. For the stores, and something that's very prevalent right now and top of mind, is we're moving these retailers away from inventory, right? Instead of having to take major positions and hope they sell the product and then marking it down if it doesn't sell, we only make what's ordered. So it keeps the cash flow really tight for the retailer and gets the customer in a better product in the end of the day.
So what was that aha, pivotal moment that you came up with this idea?
Yeah, it was similar to Rachel. It was one of those things where it was experienced over a very long period of time, right? Working in the corporate world, wearing dress shirts every single day. I'm tall and lanky. Nothing ever fit me well. There was a pivotal moment. I was actually on a date many, many years ago. I was wearing my favorite shirt, thought I looked good. Turns out I didn't, and she let me know. It was not perfect.
That'll do it.
So it was one of those, it was let's just do something about this. Why do we have to deal with a problem like this when there's so much technology out there? And what we learned pretty quickly, there's just a lot of old school thinking in the industry. It's like, well, we do it this way because we've always done it this way. So we were able to take a fresh approach, and honestly a very naive approach, and ask those what seemed like dumb questions to a lot of people, and say, as consumers, we want this. Why can't it be this way? And we kind of built it up thinking that way.
Gotcha. Thank you. So moving along, the topic of this webinar is the power of perseverance. So what does the word perseverance mean to you, Rachel? And how does that translate into the talent that
Yeah, well, man, I think when it comes to perseverance, honestly, a lot of it is dependent on making sure that you don't burn out, which is actually a very tricky balance, because I've definitely found in the moments in which I feel like I need to be figuring something out or doing something the most, and I've been really close to something for a long time and like kind of trying to figure out how to get through and solve this problem that we're having, are actually the moments in which I need to just take a step back for a second and like take a day to let my head clear so that I can move forward. Being a founder is a very emotional journey. It's very tumultuous. It's very up and down. It's emotionally taxing. So that is something that I'm really cognizant of. And I don't think that I've ever really necessarily struggled with determination as a trait. But sometimes that can also be a bit detrimental, and I need to make sure that I can last, right? Because it's a marathon, not a sprint. So to me, it's really about making sure that you're taking care of yourself as much as possible, which I still need to continue to take my own advice on that, and ensuring that, you can continue to function at the high level that you need to function at, because if you can't do that, then you're more useless than ever, so.
And how does that translate into you and your team as you're trying to onboard new types of talent?
Yeah, well, so this sort of thesis just kind of bleeds through our whole company from a values perspective, given not only are we remote and distributed, but we, by the nature of what we do and the platform that we built, really believe that, work should integrate with life, not the other way around. So for us, it's about enabling people and empowering people to set their own schedules and giving them clear goals and clear outcomes to get to, and really providing to them the resources so that they can be happy holistically as a person, and not just, somebody who comes in and does work for us. So that's been a big part of just our value set. And then that, of course, has bled into how we are structured and how we operate as well.
Matt, ask the same question to you. Again, what does the word perseverance mean to you? And again, as you're seeking out talent.
Yeah, I think to me, it's about just getting through the chop, if you will, right? And there's problems every single day, left and right. Obviously, right now we're dealing with a very extreme problem and extreme challenges. And to me, I like to think of just the idea of objectivity, right? In the end of the day, it's like, how do you put the emotions aside, put that initial gut punch aside, and say, okay, what is the right thing to do here? How do we best move forward in these times? And it's something that, back in our earliest days where we had all these Kickstarter orders fulfilled before we started as a company, and our factory backed out last minute. It's like, what do you do next? Okay, here's a problem. Let's not complain about it. Let's figure out a solution. And, I think when it comes to people, it's one of those things it's not always obvious, but with the right questions in interviews, you can really tell, is somebody a problem solver or are they a blamer, right? Do they really take ownership over challenges they faced in the past? Were they athletes? Were they, have they pursued their own things before, and how did they address problems versus, oh, my teammate did this and we didn't win because of that? And I think there's a lot of things you can do in that interview process to really get to that grit that a person has as one of their values.
Yeah, there's a lot written about grit versus perseverance and the difference between the two. Matt, I'll start with you on this one. Every business has been impacted by the COVID pandemic. Everything, right? Yeah. How are you and Stantt balancing from it? So if you could share, what were the lowest points, and how did you overcome those lows?
Yeah, I think the low point was there was just this precipitous drop off in our revenue. And, we sell a product that is not as relevant today as it was even a couple months ago with dress shirts, right? With more and more people working at home, we do believe that's going to come back. At the same time, we're selling primarily through stores, and all of those essentially shut down for a period of time, and those are slowly coming back. So that week in particular, and those 2 weeks were very, very challenging. And we were, as you guys know, we were on fire at the beginning of this year. We were right in the middle of our biggest product launch since launching the company, and there was so much excitement. And just for this to hit, not out of nowhere, but it felt like that, was certainly a low moment. And then devising a game plan where it's like, how do we maintain enough cash to get through this and bring in enough capital to get through this? And something we're focusing on every day now is just getting, coming out of the other end of this in a stronger place than we were before. And that's, I think, with all these crises, there is a silver lining, and it's terrible that it's happening, but we're trying to position ourselves as in a position of strength coming out of this.
So you read my mind. What is the silver lining?
I think it's unique in so many different ways, personal and company-wise. I'll focus on the company. Inventory has always been the bane of the retailer's existence for quite a long time, in addition to a myriad of other challenges. But I think more and more of the retailers are going to be wanting a solution like ours, where we don't have inventory, right? They buy try on set and that's it, and they never have to tie up capital again. So we're, we think there's a really strong place for us to come out of this with that as a lead with some of these retailers.
So Rachel, I'll ask you the same question, and how have you and Wethos bounced back from the pandemic? Obviously, it sounds like it's actually a great opportunity that might have accelerated the business, but if you could tell the audience, what were the low points and what did you do, and how have you overcome those?
Yeah. So yes, as you mentioned, this has dramatically influenced our business as more of like an accelerant than anything else. It's one of those like right place, right time type of situations, kind of the perfect storm that wasn't necessarily in my control. But that doesn't mean that we didn't immediately, react to it, I guess. So I think, like, having been an already remote team, we didn't have to go through nearly as much of a jarring transition that a lot of other companies did. And then in addition to that, the service that we provide and the product that we have that enables freelancers to team up with each other is already, hitting on a trend that was only like exacerbated by the crisis. And so, in February, 5 million people were working from home. And as of April, it was 316 million Americans that were sheltering in place. That's a 6,000% increase. So although we will go back into the office, I believe, I think it will leave a lasting cultural impression. And I think specifically for us, our incumbent industry, the competitors, the large ad agencies that I used to work at, are increasingly vulnerable because of the volatility and because they are so, they have such a high overhead cost. So with all those sort of factors together, we put our heads down and put a plan together to accelerate the launch of our product, which is in September. And in hopes of basically finding that silver lining, not just for us, but really for a lot of the people who are going to be laid off or furloughed from these large agencies who are, incredibly talented creative and strategy directors. And we want to give them the means and the virtual infrastructure to be able to form and run their own teams, put more money in their pockets directly and less money to overhead. So that's sort of what we're thinking about in terms of silver lining. And people losing jobs is not anything that I relish in by any means, and neither is a pandemic. So we're really just trying to look for ways in which our business model can align with what people need right now and how we can provide the most value to those people who need that.
Awesome. And look, I think you've already talked to some of it on talking about how you think about hiring your talent. One of the things at Overton, when we invest heavily on the team, the entrepreneurs and companies with strong cultures. Let's talk about your employees. How have you been dealing with morale and maintaining effective team culture during COVID? Rachel, we'll start with you.
Sure, yeah. So yes, like as an already remote team, we didn't have to go through those jarring operational changes, but of course there was like a huge emotional toll that was taken on the team and honestly continues yet taken on the team. And, you know, it's not just COVID, right? Like we have a very diverse team and there's a lot of stuff going on in the news and the media right now that that they're coping with. And we are very cognizant of that. So for us, it's really about not culture, but values, which is different to me, because to me, I hear culture and I hear a group of people who like look the same, act the same, come from the same background. To me, a values alignment is where you can get a diverse group of people together, but we believe in similar things. And so what we believe in very much so is, you know, the power of collaboration, of putting the team ahead of yourself. The taking ownership is another value that we have, absolutely. You don't have to be mean to win is another one of our values. So really, like, our team is incredibly hardworking, has incredibly high standards. But for us, the way to give them that space is to give them the freedom to, again, like, be able to set their own schedules. We already had unlimited vacation, but we gave off more company-wide days. It's very different when the whole company is quiet, especially when we're at 22 people right now and Slack is lit. But, you know, taking more long weekends, obviously, you know, we do mental health days that are every quarter. Everybody gets a mandatory mental health day, but we're encouraging people to take more of those. And then we've also, ironically enough, been learning a lot from the companies who are newly remote, who are finding like really incredibly creative ways to do stuff. So we've been doing a lot more like internal programming around, you know, we did like a Zoom trivia noon, where I actually hired a few friends of mine who run this on Tuesday nights, like a bar trivia. We use Zoom breakout rooms. And it just helps people bond over something that like isn't work in a remote environment. So we do a lot of that kind of thing, internal programming, coffee breaks, we do lunch and learns, just other stuff that helps people bond and take breaks and not, you know, just talk about work.
Awesome. And one thing I know, immediately when COVID started, you immediately reached out because as y'all are virtual teams, you had developed best practices for working remotely. And we actually shared and used those best practices with our portfolio companies and ourselves. So know that you've already shared some of the learnings that you guys have done and girls have done. So Matt, throwing the same question over to you, let's talk about employee morale, engagement, and how are you navigating that during COVID?
Yeah, it's been a journey. You know, we're in a little bit of a different position where we were coming to the office pretty much every single day, right? We have a product-based company. The touch and feel and the face-to-face was something that was important to us. So it's been really interesting navigating through that. You know, one of the things we're focused on now is just the idea of support, right? What do you guys need? What can we do for you? It's something as small as, do you need a monitor for your house, for your computer now that you're working at home, to how are you doing mentally? Do you need more time off? Whatever it may be. So just trying to be very conscious and aware of that. You know, from an engagement perspective, we're spending a lot of time on some really big projects that will change the business moving forward. And I think having something to spend a lot of time on that's very meaningful and getting some of those wins under your belt during these crazy times is very, very important. And one of the things we're evaluating right now is, what does remote look like moving forward for Stantt? And can people live in different states and have that as their full-time location? It's something that we really, you know, we had talked about, but not in a very serious manner before. But it's something that is very front and center now. It's something I'm personally very excited to explore with myself and with my business partner and the team.
Awesome. Okay, so let's throw it back to both of you. How are you taking care of yourselves personally? Do you have any tricks or tips? I know, Rachel, you already alluded to that it's a challenge to take care of oneself when you are the founder and the CEO. But Rachel, how are you taking care of yourselves? Is there any tools or tricks that you can share with the audience?
Sure, yeah. Definitely. Working from home and being like trapped in your house is a very different thing from the life I was living before this, which was working remotely, which was like, sometimes I'm in LA, sometimes I'm in New York. Like I have look to work from an office space sometimes. Like it is very different. And so as I'm being trapped in my home, I've just been thinking a lot about how a lot of the peace that I sort of seek out has to come from here, from within me, right? Because I can't go hop on a plane and sit on a beach and feel better about myself, right? And so I've been using Headspace a lot. I've been doing a lot of meditating, which is tough for me. I have a very busy brain, but it really, really helps. Just even like I do 10 minutes every day before I log on to work. And there's a little mantra that they use about like reminding myself of the intention of doing that and what the impact will have on people around me if I'm less stressed out. So that's been really helpful. And then I've also been, I have a backyard and I've been trying to garden, but I'm
so jealous.
already not done well at it, but it is nice. It's like physical, it's tactile. It's a little creative too. And I've been doing a little bit more creative writing. So I usually write, for work type of stuff, but I've just been writing little short stories that are more creative to help give myself a creative outlet. Because I also was a creative very much so, and my job is not as much anymore. So yeah.
Great. And I've also been doing some gardening too, and it is therapeutic. And then you also, there are many vegetables and fruits that actually do start to sprout very quickly. So you can see that instant gratification as well. So Matt, throwing it over to you, how are you finding some solace and any tricks and tips that you can share?
I mean, the first thing I did was grew an 8-week quarantine beard, which Michael and Carrie I think saw, but shaved that off recently and desperately need a haircut right now.
You can pull it off. I can't pull it off.
I don't know. The team was not pleased with it. I can tell you that much. One of the things I found most fascinating, I'm very much a routine person, and it's there are these cues that I didn't necessarily appreciate in the day of, hey, trying to get in the office at 7:30 in the morning, which led to going to the gym at a certain time and leaving the office at a certain day and meditating before bed, yada, yada, yada. And it's been really interesting figuring out the new routine. And I was telling Carrie, it's like, I've been so bad with going to the gym in the morning or working out in the morning, so there's no gym now. So it's that mental cue that is no longer even available. So just trying to really get into that new rhythm, knowing that this thing isn't a 2-month blip on the radar, right? This is the new reality for quite a while, especially being in New York. So really working on it. What is that new routine? And how do I motivate myself to get to the gym or not get to the gym, but do some type of workout in the morning? Trying to spend time on little mental break hobbies and playing music and reading and getting into things that I'd never found time for before. I think has been a very, very important part of the journey as well. And then just really sinking my teeth into some big projects for the company has been very exciting and rewarding. And, some of those projects that have always been in the back of our heads of, yeah, this would be amazing if we did this, and chalking up a few of those wins has been, inspiring and motivating for me, for sure.
Awesome. So, a little bit of the pat on the back that I'm going to allow y'all to brag about yourselves. We view y'all as superheroes. You've really both of you been able to navigate through the situation incredibly. The audience wants to know, what would you say your superpower is? Rachel, I'll throw it back to you.
Well, okay. Well, I think that I'm a very adaptable person, but I would say that my ongoing superpower is my ability to learn over time. I think that my capacity for learning compounds, and I've in my past lives have not given myself nearly enough credit. I was not really a great student necessarily. I went to art school. I was told in high school that I was bad at math, and I haven't taken a math class since. But starting a company forces you to just learn constantly. And it's just really given me a newfound appreciation for that. And so I think my lifelong superpower is adaptability, but I think my newfound superpower since founding the company is that capacity for learning.
Awesome. Great superpower to have. Matt, throwing it over to you. What superpower? You're more humble. You don't.
Look, the thing I spend time on that I think has become very valuable and continues to be very valuable to me personally is just building relationships. particularly with people who are way smarter than me in a lot of areas and getting to learn from them. So that's, something that I like to spend time on, and I continue to spend a lot of time on, and it's been very, very rewarding. And it's one of my favorite parts about getting to do the entrepreneurship journey, and you get to meet so many cool people that I never would have met in the corporate world, and maintaining those relationships and getting to continue to learn is very rewarding.
Thank you. Wethos, Stantt, two great, startups, each disrupting different sectors. Can you share how your particular industry is going to, where's the industry going in the next few years? And, what is it that gets you so excited about the future of Matt, Stantt? Where's the industry going, and what gets you excited about?
Yeah, I think there's many, many trends. Obviously, two of them that are front and center for me are personalization, right? People expect product that is for them and created for them. And I think that's something that we're very much tapping into and is part of our DNA. And I mentioned a few times just the inventory-less model and moving away from inventory and fast retailing, or moving towards fast retailing and no inventory models, I think is going to, similar to how Rachel mentioned, there's certain trends in her industry that are being accelerated. I think that's one of those that is absolutely going to happen, particularly in apparel.
Rachel?
Yeah, I think, sort of like agency world aside, which, the kind of Mad Men era has been sort of slowly devolving, I would say. But I think the biggest shift that I see, just having been an independent myself for some time and having the customers that we do have, is this shift in the idea of like a labor marketplace. I think that many of the companies that exist today that are gig oriented have created, unfortunately, like a huge race to the bottom. And that is basically the exact opposite approach of what we take. Like, our major metric for the company is increasing freelancer earnings over time. So Teams obviously enables us to do that. So I think the big shift for me is not necessarily like more verticalization or anything like that, but it's this shift from simple services to complex services, and the ability for technology to make that happen in a more virtual environment. And that ultimately leads to a much more fruitful environment for everybody involved, because at that point, what a client might have been used to paying like RGA, which is, millions of dollars a year, potentially, to like maybe run their social media, you could get the same level of talent on a freelance basis as a team for a fraction of what that is. And at the same time, those people are earning more money's going in their pocket because we don't mark up 300 to 500%. So I think like all those things start to converge, and there really has to be a shift in mindset, I think, especially around independence and what they need to not just survive, but actually thrive. And for, the larger market to understand that a large portion of people actively choose this path. They choose the freedom and the flexibility of freelance. It's not because they have to do it. And if you try to hire them full time, they don't want to go. They don't want to do it. They're running their own business. They're running an independent life. Yep. So for us, like, it's really going to be, shifting that mentality and letting sort of the rest of the world catch up to that. And I think with that shift, there will be a really, really bountiful future where, we can create exponentially more revenue and earnings from pairing people together.
Gotcha. No, that's great. And, to wrap our session up, can you each share that one thing for the people that are watching? What's that one piece of advice or form of inspiration that's been helpful to you in forging a path forward? Rachel?
Yeah, I think that in terms of moving forward, I find the exercise of like speculating what will happen a little exhaustive to a certain extent, because at this point, like, the future is whatever we choose to make of it. So no one is forcing companies to pay their employees less now that they're suddenly remote and maybe they live in a different state. Like, nobody's forcing that. That's a choice companies are making. So for me, like, the big piece of advice is, let's focus on the things that we can control. Let's acknowledge when we're making a choice and we're not just, being a sheep, I guess, following what's always been done. And then let's seize the opportunity to, you know, actually create a future that we want, because this has been a giant ripcord across labor, across healthcare, across education, across work. And it's really shined a pretty intense light on a lot of really not so great things about our society. So I think like my big thing is focusing on how we can seize the opportunity to rebuild the world that we actually want to be in, and focusing on the things and the factors that we can actually control, and worrying less about if this, that, or the other is going to necessarily happen.
Yeah, thank you. Matt, real quick, 30 seconds.
Never waste a good crisis. We had one of our board members shared that with us, and it's, you know, it's obviously terrible things are happening right now, and but in the moment, it's like, how can we come out of this better and stronger and more impactful? And that's where we're spending so much of our time right now.
Okay. Well, Rachel, Matt, you know, thank you for joining panel. Thanks to those who tuned in to join Overton for our very first Spotlight series. Our next webinar will discuss the transformation of retail and what is that long-term impact from coronavirus on stores. If you have any questions or wish to learn more about Overton Venture Capital, please reach out. I'd love to hear from you. Lastly, recording of today's session will be circulated via email. Thanks again for joining us, and have a great evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
See ya.